And I believe there's a new one on the way. Is it out? It's actually out. Gosh, goodness. Between You, Me and the Four Walls are a new diary of the butterfly. And she's going to be in conversation with Faiza, who's a former consulting editor at Bloomsbury, UK, and she's now a freelance editor and creative consultant, and she's part of the team of silkroadslippers.com, which I hope you'll all look up. So please come and join us, and let's hear more about the social butterfly.
As they say in Pakistan, testing, 1, 2, 3.
Well, Moni, I'm delighted to see you again, and I'm delighted to be here with Social Butterfly, the first lady of Pakistani satire. And I had the great pleasure of being given a copy of Moni's new book, Between You, Me and the Four Walls, which I read last night. And it was a very brisk gallop through the last... Is it the last sort of 5 years, seven years? And it was Brexit, it was Modi's victory, it was Imran Khan's rise, Asma Jahangir's death, end-to-end PTI dharnas. And I mean, you know, it's one of those rare things, it's such a cliche to say this, but I did laugh and I did cry, actually, because it does all of that. First of all, it's all so personal, we feel so close to it all. But also it was one horrible thing after another. It gave me such PTSD, you know, that I barely slept at night after reading this. But obviously a great many laughs. And I had to call Moni at one point, and message her to say I had to put the phone down and laugh for 10 minutes at Butterfly, who's famous for her malapropisms, and we'll speak about her language in a minute. But Butterfly, who was applying creme de la merde to her skin. So that was delightful. So now Rachel has already sort of, I'm afraid, dealt with my first question, which is that where did Butterfly come from? So she's come from a column in the Friday Times. But I wanted to ask that, can you tell us how the character was born? I mean, where did you get the idea? Tell us about Butterfly as a chrysalis. Where did the idea come from?
So when I was working in Lahore at the Friday Times, I was responsible for a column, a weekly column. And it was, I don't know why this is, but still in newspapers there are women's pages.
Right.
You know, I've never seen a man's page.
That's the news pages, Moni.
And the editorial.
Yes.
So women's pages are usually about fashion and makeup and creme de la merde and stuff like that. Anyway, so I had this column on the women's page, and my brief was to write about substantive subjects, but in a light tone. So I was a single working woman in Pakistan at that time, and I started writing about my life and the daily kind of challenges that I met, one of which was when I was working in an environmental organization, and my boss and I used to share the same room. My desk was in a corner, his was in the middle. And one day I heard from the outside somebody saying, yeah, I want to go and see an officer in here. And it was a man. And the secretary said, please do go inside, the officer is sitting inside. My boss had gone out for that time, and I was sitting there. And he opened the door, looked around. While with the door still open, he said, there's nobody here. So those were the kind of things I wrote about in my column. But after a while, and this is before the age of Facebook, I began to feel that my whole life had become kind of public property, because every time I did something, every time anything happened to me, I'd write about it. And then I thought, no, I can't. I want to be a private individual again. And I said to my editor that I didn't want to do this column anymore. And he said, well, unfortunately, you've now got a readership, and if you stop writing the column, we will lose the readership. So you have to come up with something else. So I kept thinking about what can I write. And then one day I was at a lunch party in Lahore, and I was standing in, it was a buffet, and I was standing in a queue waiting to, help myself to some food. And there were two ladies who were standing in front of me. And this was, I think, sometime in early December. And it gets quite chilly, as you know. And there was one lady who was wearing, she really looked like a mummy because this chatouche was going round and round and round and around her. And she had diamond, diamond studs the size of ice cubes in her ears. And behind her was this other lady of an indeterminate age with long, blonde, blow-dried hair and a chiffon sari and a sleeveless blouse. And the lady in the chatouche turned around to the lady behind her and said, Johnny, I've just bought this 7-yard chatouche, and I had 2 already, but they were smaller. I thought I deserved a bigger one, and I just wanted to, do you also have chatouches? Do you wear them? And the other lady said, Nahi, I don't, because wo bada maids wala effect aa jata hai na. So, and I was standing behind them, and I thought to myself, this is the voice, these are the people, these are the characters, and this is the situation. And I went back and I wrote a column. And she sprang fully formed onto the page. I suppose, Faiza, because all my life I'd been listening and observing and storing.
I mean, it's a little more than listening and observing, isn't it, as well? I mean, if you don't mind... Oh, sorry, I'm so loud, I forgot that even I needed a mic. So it's more than... I mean, you have been listening and observing, but... Also, if you wouldn't mind telling us a bit about your family, because you do also do a bit more than listen and observe. Tell us about your dirty secret, Moni.
We also regurgitate.
They're all mimics. They're all lethal.
So it's just that, what I really enjoy about writing The Butterfly is being... on the alert, as it were, being alive to what people say and how they say it and what they mean and the difference between what they're saying and what they mean. And I find it extremely enjoyable and wonderful. And I find that once you start looking for those things, they come up again and again and again. And my work has been made very easy, actually, because I keep getting these. And also, friends send me stuff. So if I may, this morning, a friend forwarded me something that somebody had tweeted. As you may know, in Pakistan, there are people who are very, very... committed to Imran Khan and his politics and his return to power. And somebody who is a fan of his tweeted this, and a friend of mine shared it with me, is this. He wrote, no matter how hard they try to silence Imran Khan or suppress him, they will never understand him and his words. And his words will live on forever in infamy. He will come back even stronger than before. So,
I think he's the greatest political commentator of our time. So
he's had his say, and he's also said something very important. Yeah. He's shown his support and also pointed out. So that's what The Butterfly tries to do as well.
I think that's just... so now you say that, you were overhearing somebody and you kind of wrote it sort of as you heard it, I mean, to some extent. But was there a question? So if you read... In fact, sorry, I'm doing this in the wrong order. Before we start speaking about the language of Butterfly, would you mind terribly reading us a bit so everyone can kind of be on the same page here?
With the greatest of pleasure, Faiza. These days it's become very risky speaking anywhere in a public forum because emotions are so heightened on all sides, people are so polarized. So you'll have to forgive me if I end up saying something slightly negative or critical or even real about any of your political gurus. So forgive me, please, in advance. So the way The Butterfly works is I write about I look at what's happening in Pakistan and India and Britain, etc., from the point of view of the butterfly, so the kind of things she would notice. And she is a privileged, upper class, rich, very detached in a way from reality observer. And she writes about what is happening. She records her own thoughts and feelings. And she's quite truthful about them. And as Faiza was saying, if you read back the butterfly columns over a period of time, you will find that they're actually social commentary. And they're also political commentary. And she is a witness to our times, a slightly cross-eyed witness, but nonetheless a witness. So what happens is that I write, the first line of the butterfly column is always about what's happening in the world. And then the second line is about what's happening in her world. So April 2016. Panama Papers reveal Sharif family's offshore holdings. Butterfly alarmed by infestation of rats in Peshawar. So, all the chalaks of the world have been investigating their money into this Panama company called Offshore. So, Amitabh Bachchan is having shares inside it, and also Aishwarya Rai. Nawaz Sharif and his children are also having. And Iceland ka president and even David Cameron's daddy. Obviously, Janu, my husband, being the loser that he is, hasn't. Story of our lives, वैसे. Imran Khan wants to come on PTV to dress the nation and tell us how corrupt Nawaz is for investigating into offshore. Some PTV gundas who tried to destroy his, same PTV that his gundas tried to destroy in his dharna in Islu. Remember how they rushed in and smashed the cameras and beat up the Bichara TV walas and threatened them and also then denied it all? Yes, same PTV. Now he wants to come on that. I say, poor Imran, he's got his hands full these days now with his internal party elections and also with the rats. Apparently, rats have overrun the whole of KP, the province that Imran was elected from. But in Peshawar, they've been attacking children and gobbling up everything. Rice, meat, shoes, clothes, even books. So now they've devoured so many books, they've become very intelligent rats. And also, Sunaya, they've also grown very big. Much bigger, Mallu was telling me, than our poor Punjabi rats, which are dark and small. Natch, Mallu, I said. After all, the ones in Peshawar are Pathan rats. So obviously they're going to be bigger and fairer. No, she responded. You don't understand. These are no ordinary rats. They've been generically mollified and deliberately released into Peshawar first and programmed to make their way south into whole of country, eating everything as they go. But released by whom? I asked. By CIA, she whispered. Oh, I whispered back. Sachi. Or maybe even by Indians. You know now that we sent a spying pigeon to them. So now, as tit for tit, they've sent these greedy rats to us. Honestly, so unfair of them. But surely if they were Indian rats, they would be vegetarian, I asked. You have a point, she said. Maybe in that case they've been sent by Israel. Oh, I said. But if they've come from Israel, why are they devouring Urdu books? Because they're very clever in Israel. Just yesterday, someone told me that Jewish people, they've won more Nobel Prizes than anyone else. So naturally, they can also speak many languages. But I think so Imran is going to deal with them good and proper with these rats, you know. The Israelis, I said. No, not those rats, the real rats. Oh, you mean like the Pied Piper of Hamelin? Maybe he'll send them all to Panama.
Thank you so much for that.
Pleasure.
So yes, so as Moni was saying, that butterfly is, okay, so I have this quote, I mean, I'm sort of embarrassed at how much I peddle it, but it's so perfect, and it does remind me of butterfly, and of great satire in general, which is the great Quentin Crisp, who said that when you write things better than they are, they call you a romantic. And when you write things worse than they are, they call you a realist. And when you write things exactly as they are, they call you a satirist. And that, you know, is Butterfly, because she is, as you say, observing things and things. I think there's some sort of notion that when situations are terrible, everyone is having some sort of suitably serious response to them. Whereas, as we all know, when situations are terrible, I mean, I've lived in Karachi and I've been in situations where sort of, you know, a bomb has gone off and my main concern has been, oh my God, how will I get to the hairdresser? I mean, you know, this is sort of like real life does essentially, it intervenes and it's part of all of these things.
Yes.
And I think that's, you know, part of the genius. Like, I think there's some notion that we all live with this kind of almost this like abiding dishonesty that if an issue is very big, it has to be dealt with with a kind of somberness to connote its seriousness, whereas in real life, that's really very often not what's happening.
And excuse me if I say this, Faiza, but this is also a kind of false distinction which is imposed on subcontinental literature or subcontinental writing. That, you know, it's all about terrorism, it's all about Islamism, it's all about caste, it's all about poverty, it's all about women, downtrodden women, it's all about minorities who are being hounded, and all of that is true.
Yes.
But as you say,
all of that is in Butterfly as well.
Yes.
You know, is the thing, but it's that thing that it's only good if it is in a serious way about these things.
Yes.
And the idea, and it is also this notion, I think, that one has of literature, that, you know, you refer to things as guilty pleasures, which is just this like bourgeois phrase that makes me want to kill myself, but, you know, like guilty pleasures versus, you know, real literature, which is somehow self-improvement. I mean, as opposed to the entire endeavor essentially being escapism, and what you learn from it, you learn from it, you know. But there is this idea that, you know, literature is kind of weighted, and if it has seriously dealt with a certain issue, its value is higher than if it has dealt with a certain issue seriously, which Butterfly does continuously, but in a way that makes you laugh, and in a way that reflects some of your baser aspects as well. You know, so last night when I was reading Butterfly, and I was thinking, my God, and the thing is, every time I come back to it, I mean, I read the last one, which was The Return of Butterfly, which was a good few years ago now, which was spectacular. But I feel I always have the same reaction to it, which is that, you know, as I said, I do literally laugh and cry, but I'm always kind of shaken, actually, by how good it is, because not just is it showing you society, a certain strata of society, as you say, Butterfly represents a sort of, you know, kind of elite Lahore, you know, a particular sort of, you know, summers in London and designer clothing.
Yeah.
But I was reading it, and, you know, you laugh along and you think, oh God, I know these ridiculous people and I know these ridiculous views. And then, but if you're, you know, burdened with sort of flicker of self-awareness, you have that horrendous, I was thinking of Flaubert's saying of Madame Bovary, you know, Bovary, c'est moi. So that, you know, that's what makes Butterfly so excellent, because you do, alas, see little glimpses
of yourself. When people ask me people actually ask me, who is she adopted on?
Yeah.
And I always say with great candor, I think, myself. Yeah. Because everything that maybe I won't voice it, and maybe I won't, you know, I'll filter out quite a lot of my unworthy thoughts, but we do have them. Everybody has them. And she actually says them out loud. So for instance, as some of you may know, Pakistan, ever since the arrest of Imran Khan, or the attempted arrest of Imran Khan, Pakistan has been in uproar over the last week or so, with his supporters going ballistic on the streets and saying that they're going to burn the country down if anybody touches Imran Khan, who is their red line. But a lot of society ladies who are like Butterfly and who live a very privileged lives have also suddenly woken up and said that this is the first time ever anybody has stood up to authority in Pakistan. Forget that Bhutto was hanged. Forget that Benazir was assassinated. Forget any number of. But so this is the first time, and they've suddenly woken up, and they feel that they're very empowered, and they want to run out onto the streets and do as much damage as they want. And they did a little bit, and then they were caught on camera, and then the law authorities came for them. And they were also, but then they got very upset and said, how could you do it to us? To us? We are padha likhas. How could you do it to us? But not only that, there's also, they were put on the exit control list. So there was this big thing, how will I go to London in the summer now? How am I going to go and do my shopping? And, you know, those were the thoughts which are going through my head as well. You know, so that's her. She's not coming. She said to me she's going to come. And so obviously she's not coming in the same. But you do think about all of those things.
No, completely. And I mean, again, you know, it's sort of, it's more kind of amped up perhaps in this context, but I mean, even in this country, I mean, if you know, all, I'm sure we're all sort of pleasant Guardian readers, news is just news if it happens to middle class people.
Yeah.
So it really is sort of that kind of, you know, it's that on steroids, really, is what we have in Pakistan.
Yes.
And so I wanted to ask you actually, just to pick up on something that you said over there, and it's a horrible question, I do apologize. So, as Moni was saying, you know, and as we've seen, as people who've read Butterfly, and people who, you know, of course, you've read an extract out now, but Butterfly is somebody who is, you know, shall we say, slightly more easily moved by kind of propaganda and sort of, you know, like kind of manipulated.
She's credible
by various forces.
Credulous, yeah.
And so, but however, you do have to write her, and so you do have a certain amount of affection for her.
Yeah.
So, my question is that are there certain things that even though Butterfly, the character, might realistically do, you can't bear to have her do as an author because you still have to live with her and write her? Because I mean, I fully see Butterfly as Dharna. I mean, I'm just saying.
Being an Insafian, yes.
So, but it's interesting, but I feel
I just could not. You know, but now I think, Faiza, maybe I'll have to cross the Rubicon because it's come to that now. Because she would. The only thing is, you know, to write the satire, you also have to say something, but you because a lot of people think that you actually mean what you're saying. You also have to have somebody who questions it in the work as you're writing it. So her husband will say something to her like, it's so unfair, you know. My kitty party, all the ladies are now so afraid, you know, they've all gone underground and they've become guerrillas for this, you know, PTI. So it's so unfair, you know, that the police is after them because they're padha likha khata pitas, you know, they shouldn't be happening to them. So he will then say, and it's okay, I suppose, if it happens to poor people who haven't had the privilege of a college education. And then she will say, no, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that, you know, we deserve better. And so, you know, you have to correct it. Otherwise, I will sound like I'm a completely heartless cow. People will believe.
And it also just for the you know, it needs that just to be satire.
Yes,
I mean, in the sense that so there is Butterfly and then there is her, and we were discussing this on the way over, and I mean, this is a conversation I think several people have had, but there's Butterfly and there's her very progressive, sane, you know, borderline socialist husband.
Rational, yes.
And it's sort of like, I mean, I think of them kind of allegorically as, you know, the kind of good angel and the devil, like, sitting on everyone's shoulders.
Yes,
right? You get that sort of, like, are they going to go one way or the other?
Yes,
so he is the voice of sanity,
yes.
You know, and she, you know, the marriage of these two, and, you know, how this has now been a long, I mean, how long have they been, they don't age, do they?
They
sort of
that's
stay,
a problem, yes.
No, but it's not a problem. I think of it as like Peanuts and Charlie Brown, which is that they don't age either. They just
or also
are
like
of a particular age.
And also like P.G. Woodhouse and Bertie Wooster, who remains the same age and as silly as he ever was.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
But they have a sort of, you know, they
functioning
get on fine.
marriage.
They get on fine. With
They
all of this.
don't get on fine, I would say, but they have a functioning marriage. And I was saying to Faiza that I know several people, several ladies who are silly and self-involved and utterly unaware of the larger world, married to very sane, educated, responsible human beings. And similarly, I know a lot of very macho, very thick, very kind of brutish men, married to entirely sensible, realistic, measured women. And you constantly wonder, how does this keep going? But it does. And in desi marriages, I suppose it does more so, because you're not just married to each other, you're also married to each other's families, and you're married to each other's social circles, and you're married to your circumstances. So it's a very big thing to step out of all of that.
I wanted to ask you also about responses to Butterfly. So you say that your friends send you snippets of news, you know, which you feel. I'm sitting on a massive piece of gossip, which I'm going to tell you about on our way home, you know, which may end up in your column. So, you know, but how do people respond? So first, we've got lots of tears to this. Has anyone ever thought you're writing about them? I mean, are there people who think that they might be...
So in a bad way, only once, somebody wrote, I wrote a column, and I have to make up, names, etc. Like my friend Mallu and her husband Tony, and my friend Sunny and her husband Bobby, and I try not to and once I made up these names entirely out of the top of my head, and I wrote about them, about being silly, etc. And it turned out there was a couple who had those names, and not only were they a couple who were sort of out in the world, they were also related by marriage to us.
Oh, wonderful!
And
that is out in the world in Pakistan, like, you know.
And they called up my sister and said, why have you done this to us? What have you got against us? And if you really don't, if you have a problem with us, why don't you come out and just say it? And so she said, you wrote it, you go ahead. So I had to go and grovel and beg, and that was 2 decades ago, and she still hasn't forgiven me. But other than that, I'm really pleasurably surprised. Even though a lot of people will come up to me and say, "Aapne kis pe adopt kiya hai?" Or "Tell me now, who is it? I'll keep your secret. Tell me." But there are also other ladies, and it's usually women. Men have never come and said this to me, even though men read it a lot.
Men read, absolutely.
Women will come up to me and say, "Thank you," and I say, "Well." Some of them will say for entertaining us, etc. And I say, some will say for holding a mirror up to me. I find myself in this all the time. And I'm so touched when they say that, because it's for me it's the highest compliment. And I say, well, I was writing about myself really. And they say, no, me, and I know other people, but me as well. So that's very nice. But what upsets me, I shouldn't say upsets me, but what sometimes sort of is a little bit disappointing is when people come to me and say that I love your chicklet. Because I don't think of it as chicklet, I think of it as social commentary. I also think that it's not just for women, it's for men. And to be honest, I do have, even though a lot of the books come out in pink, I do have quite a large male readership, because it began life as a newspaper column, and it still exists as a newspaper column, but now in Dawn. So a lot of men read it as well in Pakistan, and I find this quite refreshing, Faiza, that a lot of men in Pakistan read a lot of romantic poetry. They read a lot of novels. They read a lot of romantic novels as well. Yeah. They watch a lot of romantic plays, and I find that very refreshing.
No, it's true. And I'm sort of, I hope I'm getting this right, but I do feel that romance, in our part of the world, it has been a male also,
yes,
in that,
both.
Romantic poetry has been written by men, and you know,
and in the
etc.
female
for
voice,
centuries.
as a female,
Yes, that too.
in
Yeah.
Punjabi poetry,
Right.
a man who's writing is Sufi poetry. It's
Yeah.
a woman who's yearning, and he's actually channeling a woman's thoughts.
Yes, absolutely.
and
That's sort of
feelings.
like the metaphysical John Donne, but like centuries before John Donne,
Yes,
essentially.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And this kind of what I mean, it's not directly related to butterfly, but the kind of multi narratives that we had in the East. You know, it wasn't sort of black and white.
Yeah.
There weren't these kind of cast iron divisions. This is male. This is female.
Oh God, yes. I think about this so often because this is such a sort of a discussion in this country,
Yeah.
you know, and my sort of sense is that, you know, I'm from a much older culture and I'm just going to wait for you guys to catch up.
And we
you
have
know.
lived with gender fluidity and
Yeah.
identity fluidity for a long, long
Yeah,
time.
yeah, absolutely.
So anyway.
Yeah, yeah. No, completely. So they are. So, but I mean, I've seen this. I'm frequently, you know, just by Moni and I used to have a podcast, which we're going to be returning to.
So we're collaborators as well.
We're collaborators as well. So, but just by dint of association, by you people, very you know, excitedly come up to me and say, "Oh, we're such big fans," and I sort of look of Moni, and I think, "Oh yes, no, well, you know, yes, naturally, you know." And it is so often men, and you know, and when I used to live in India, I found actually that you have so many, and I used to live in Delhi, that you have so many Indian fans, and it's sort of, it's more, it's not men and women, it's more people of the Punjab.
Yes, it's the
you know.
Punjabi.
It's a
It's that
particular type of humor.
And it's that humor.
So,
Yeah. It's
which
that
everyone
humor.
finds enormously familiar. So,
It's also the social structure is the same.
yeah.
It's not just in the Punjab, but all of India and Pakistan, the social structure is the same. So, you know, if you say to somebody, you meet in London, and you meet an Indian, you meet an Indian in London, and you ask them, you say to them, "Where do you live?" And they will say, "Oh, I live in Delhi." "Oh, you must be knowing so and so then, you know, because the
and the
assumption
really embarrassing thing is that
you do.
One does.
you know, so because the social elites are so small, and it's the same in both countries.
Yeah.
So the butterfly is, I think, enjoyed in India because it's also familiar,
Completely. It's completely the same world.
and we enjoy so much. I mean, I loved Made in Heaven, because that too was so familiar to me. An Indian serial, if you haven't seen it, please do. It's brilliant.
No, I'm afraid I have no idea how we're doing for time. I literally have not even brought a watch with me.
We have 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, I
15
think
minutes,
I think I should open it up to questions.
Can I do one more
actually.
reading for you guys, and then after that you can ask me as many questions as you like, because I suspect sometimes it's very embarrassing when I go and there's not a single question. But let me find something else. US drone strike against Afghan Taliban. This was May 2016. Janu is visited by a lady friend. So Janu went to Oxford, and he is known, and as Oxford graduates are called, they're called Oxons, so she calls him Oxen. And he has a life of books and study and world events that she's not part of, but she's his wife, and so she's his hostess.
Sorry, I just want to say that as you're describing them, I'm also thinking that they have a great parallel in Mr. and Mrs. Bennett.
Of course,
you know,
yes,
they're also
yes,
that is
yes,
the sort
yes,
of
yes,
setup.
yes, absolutely. Last month, Janu got an email from an old friend, an Indian. Upar se woman, upar se oxen. Apparently, she studied in Oxford with Janu. She was in some college called Copper Christi, where she learnt English and came first. Now she's in Ustani in Cambridge at a college called Clear. Must be giving A-levels ki tuition only. If I had a bore bookie friend like her, I would have dropped her like a hot naan. But Janu, you know, being bore and bookie himself, was excited that she was coming to Lahore and had got in touch. "Can we have her over for dinner on Monday?" he asked. being the kind-hearted, soft-headed soul that I am, I agreed, even though I knew it would be most bore evening ever. But chalo, life mein you have to give sacrifices. I didn't bother to change because I thought, she's a teacher, bhai. Why bother to dress up? In any case, I knew from before only that she would be handloom type with dusty brown chappals, cracked heels, and tight little grey bun. So, when she entered, I straight away went into shock. She had grey hairs, as I had said she would, but cut short in stylish type boycott, and she was wearing sari in charcoal grey slinky crepe de chine and sleeveless blouse, and her arms were all firm, smooth, and she had scarlet lipstick and black suede stiletto sandals and a proper mani-pedi with toes and nails painted blood red. I mean, what a fraud! No? I wanted to rush off and change into my bland new designer outfit with the lace culotte pants just to show her. Her name was Sharmila, but Janu called her Millie. Cheapster. I wanted to tell her there's a shop in Liberty Market in Lahore called Millie Chappal House. But I didn't because I thought she might mind. Waise, Gupshup was very bore. I asked her what she did, and she said she was a director of studies. Oh, you are a director? I said. Which company? Now, if she's also a businessman, I thought will die. Oh no, she laughed fakely. Director of studies meaning head of the department at my college. Thanks God. Oh, okay, teacher only. And what are you teaching? English. My specialty is the Brontes. Just look at her. So bossy, so boasty. Oh, yes, I said Jane Eyre only. I've seen her movie 2-3 times on TV. And that Mr. Dorchester is so handsome, but so unlucky now to have that crack wife upstairs. Waise, I understand the second wife thing. I understand that. That mullah at our local mosque also has 2 wives. Both of them living with him only. And daddy's uncle Shamshad had 3. The youngest, she was very pretty, but poor thing, she was from a poor family. So she was many years younger than him, just like Jane Eyre and Mr. Dorchester. Now, if you don't mind, I'll see about dinner. And I got up and I stalked out. Showed her how pada likha I was. Put her in her place. Badi ai, director of studies.
Wonderful. So yeah, I can keep asking you things really all day because it's endlessly delightful, but I'd like to open it up since we're... yes.
Excuse me, what would our honorable PMG, what would Social Butterflies say about our honorable PMG, please?
I was invited to a talk at a Zoom talk from Delhi women's thing, and they said, "Okay, we would like you to read some butterfly comments, entries." And I said, "Okay, can I read about Modi ji?" And she said, "I'm sorry, but no." So I'm a bit worried. She is very impressed by him because, as she says, that his 56-inch chest is bigger than Kim Kardashian's even, So she's very impressed, very. And also all her friends, her Indian friends in London, they all love Modi ji. So she's also in love with Modi ji because she wants to be invited to their parties.
And because he's giving the poors the danda, as I understand.
Yes, and he gives...
work.
Yes, he gives the poors the danda, and because, they're lazy and they don't work, so naturally, bhai, it's good for them. He pulls them up, gives them danda, and then, also all the others who are sort of, lazies and poors.
He's very stylish man also.
Very stylish, and all those kind of pastels, the half-sleeve kurtas and the pastels, very nice.
What percentage of your readership would be male? Because I can just see Khushwant Singh devouring the Social Butterfly.
He used to write to me as well. It was very nice. I actually, Khushwant Sahab had a friend called Jaya who used to live in Lahore a long time ago, and she was a Punjabi as well, and she now lives in America, and they used to write to each other, and they used to discuss the butterfly. And once she sent me a letter. She said that she had been talking to an Indian friend of hers who had also, she had recommended that she read The Diary of a Social Butterfly to this Indian lady who was a very wealthy lady in Delhi. And she said her first reaction was, when did they get so rich? When did they get so rich? So she sent me that letter. That was very funny. Jaya Thadani, Auntie ki cook. That's right. That's right.
I'd like to ask you a question about the position of English in
The subcontinent.
Pakistan and India.
Yeah.
Now it's under attack by our present Prime Minister, well, by the present government, I would say. But the fact is that there are more and more people learning English in India than ever before. It's the fastest growing language, despite the government. It's the fastest growing language. Something like 10% of Indians now speak and understand English. That means 140 million Indians. Mm-hmm. Is it the same in Pakistan or not?
It is, because everybody understands that the social mobility is based on English. If you want to get a good job, if you want to get ahead, if you want particularly to migrate, which a lot of Indians and Pakistanis do, you have to know English. And so that is why there is such a preponderance and proliferation of English medium schools in Pakistan and private schools. I think that, having said that, we have turned English into our own English, which is entirely justifiable. And we love asking each other what our good name is, and if we're eating bake tonight, and many other things.
Well, I just want to say, because I forgot to say this earlier, but for me, one of the most amazing things about Social Butterfly is the radical use of language. And I know that much has been said about Salman Rushdie and chutneyfied English, and I don't think what Social Butterfly has done is any less kind of extraordinary than that. I mean, because there's nothing, it's not like you were treading into a groove that was already there. You know, that's what I find amazing about it.
But in a way, it was there, Faiza, because as I say, I've been listening all this time.
No,
so
true. But
orally, it's been there.
Absolutely. But there is this notion again, and we all come to it, keeping in mind English as well. And I edit like lots and lots of debut fiction from South Asia. I find a lot of South Asian writers are very careful about their use of language. And the Marlon James, who won the Booker a couple of years ago, said that people from the colonies speak butler English, right?
Yes,
because they're really taken with being correct and proper. And so I have this absolutely brilliant writer in India who I work with and I edit, and she writes Chicklet. You'd mentioned Chicklet earlier as well. And on that front also, I want to say that Chicklet is also social satire.
Yes.
And Chicklet has always been satire about the patriarchy, and hence its derogatory, title, because, that is what Chicklet is. It's talking about how incredibly unfair it is in a patriarchal world to try to find love.
And be disappointed.
No, absolutely. And sort of then internalize that, right, but this is sort of asking kind of
become
bigger
the
questions about
disappointment.
the world. Yes, quite. And so what I find with English is that people are really keen for readers to know that they know how to speak English properly. And that's why Butterfly is so radical, because you didn't have any of that fear or worry. You just plowed in.
It was easy also because I was just, as I said, channeling what I was hearing. And I must make I must give due credit to somebody else who also wrote like this a long time ago, and that was Shobha Day.
Yes.
And she wrote in a Stardust magazine, which I used to devour in the 70s. And she used to write, also she used to say things like, "Chalo, let's go and eat some korma." She didn't say, "Okay, let's go and eat curry," And she also used to say, "I'm too fed up," and stuff like that. And I learned from her as well. And it's one of the great joys of my life, and particularly when people write in and give me ideas. I love it. There's a friend of ours in Delhi who wrote to me and said, I've got a treasure for you. And he said, I was having lunch with a friend in November, and we were sitting outside in Delhi, and he said, ooh, such a nipple in the air. So I immediately took it, and then he got very upset with me. He said, you didn't give me credit. I said, I couldn't in there.
I think Shobha Day is the closest parallel to you in India. My father once was asked, what do you regard as your mother tongue? He said, I regard English as my mother tongue, though my mother can't speak a word of it.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yes.
I feel as a man, I must speak for the long-suffering Janu, and I've been reading on and off Social Butterfly for ages, and I'm much younger, so I even read it when I was a teenager. So it reminded me of my parents and their friends. It was very accurate. But long-suffering Janu. Janu is lovely. He seems a good sort. Can somebody write a column for him? Because he has a lot to say.
That's an idea. But the language, I don't know what language I would use. It'll have to be Oxon language,
Oxon, British,
Oxon.
Asian English, which I'm sure is a subgenre of language somewhere. And you find
I have to work hard at that one.
to identify namunas of it.
Yes, namunas. Yes.
Please don't write a column about Janu. I feel like all of South Asian literature and newspapers are full of Janus writing columns, and we don't need another one. And I actually wanted to ask you about, do you ever feel that there is a difference because you are a woman writing about a woman, how your work is perceived as social commentary on South Asia, as opposed to men maybe who write about women writing about, sort of in the South Asian context?
Thank you so much for that question. Entirely. As Faiza was saying, people who engage with issues in the subcontinent with high seriousness are given a kind of elevated status that people who write with humor are not. But I don't think that's just the subcontinent. I think it's everywhere. I think only 1 or 2 funny books have ever won the Booker Prize.
And they're by men also.
They're by men, yes. And if a woman wants to write, gets a book, she has to write in that way, in a way. Yes, I think there is this, there's this whole kind of slight undermining, and even when people, a lot of men read it, but they patronize me when they talk to me, and they'll say, "Bada enjoy kiya aapka take, bahut interesting tha, funny," and a woman will come to me and say, "I recognize myself. I recognize the voice. I recognize the situation. I recognize the people. I know it." A man will never say to me, "I see myself," even though a lot of them think exactly like this infamy thing that I read to you, wrote out to you, but they will never say it. I suppose it's a question of confidence.
Ouch. Extended.
Yes, sorry, you've been waiting for a long time. Sorry, Michael, I'll just get back to you.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, firstly, I thought your readings were really, really funny.
Thank you.
And funny precisely because they were so accurate and real. But I wanted to make the point that Faiza had said that there's the devil and the angel sort of battling against each other. And I just wonder whether there really is a devil, because what strikes me is how much affection there seems to be behind your depiction of the social butterfly. And without that affection, would it be nearly as effective and nearly as funny? And also that affection, of course, relates to the fact that we can all identify with this lady. So in a way, it's like you mentioned, Faiza, you referred to Mrs. Bennett. I think there's an element of that, you know, that the reason why Mrs. Bennet is so funny is also because one can't help liking her
Yeah,
as well.
or
the
at
same
least
time.
sympathizing with her. You know, you do sympathize with her, and sometimes you find Mr. Bennet a little bit unfair in the way he makes fun of her in front of her children.
Yes.
I thank you for that insightful comment. I do find I once had to run a workshop on humor, and I was trying to think about why people like Butterfly. I've been writing this for a very long time, and people have been very loyal and very kind. But I was thinking to myself why it is so, and I think it is because A, I try and be as truthful as possible, and B, because I put she is the narrator, and she makes fun of herself first and foremost. If you're only making fun of other people and not yourself, it's not funny. You know, you're laughing at people, you're not laughing with people. You have to laugh at yourself first, and you have to show a certain degree of humility, and then people will warm to you. Otherwise, it's all about, you know, taking the moral, the higher sort of ground, and poking fun at other people. And that's never, it's amusing for a while, it's witty, but it's not endearing.
Because if the reader doesn't feel that sense of affection,
yes,
I'm not sure that the reader will want to continue hearing what she has to say.
Yeah, and also because she's funny and she's silly, and also she is evil at times. You know, the kind of comments that she comes out with, the things that she says are unsupportable. But because she is so flawed, you forgive her. You know, anybody who is flawed themselves recognize her for a person who is like them. Sorry, can I just quickly take a question from Michael before?
I was going to ask it myself. And I'm going to use...
Sorry, I think we've run out of time.
Unfortunately, and we would love to all hear more Butterfly, of course you must read the book. But just before I go, when Niloufar asked about our Prime Minister, but our Prime Minister is from Gujranwala, and he's an Oxon. He must know Butterfly, surely, and Janu.
And mashallah, he's not from the poors. He's not, you know, unlike other people who have come from migrant sort of have had to work hard in the world and lift themselves up by. He is, mashallah, not from the poors, and nor is he lazy.
That was absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much to our great speakers.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
I love it. Love it. Thank you.
With the greatest...
Hello, everyone. I'd like to introduce our next session now. If we can all settle down, please, and welcome our guests. Our next session is called The Big C in Our Future. And in this case, the C is climate change. And it's about winning the race to net zero emissions zero. That sounds optimistic and unusually so. And while we're talking about climate change, but that's because our next guest, Akshat Rati, describes himself as a climate optimist. It may seem strange to be so optimistic about climate change, and we're going to find out more why he is that way, especially in the face of such a daunting challenge that faces us as a human race, that we face as a human race. I believe personally, as a tech entrepreneur myself, that what we lack is human will and political will. Better? Is that better? Better? Can we have it louder, please? Hello? Is that better? Everyone? Back there, can you hear me? Wonderful. Right. Shall I start again? Wonderful. Okay, so our next session is called The Big C in Our Future, and we're talking about climate change here and about winning the zero emission race together, which is optimistic. And that's because we've got our next guest, Akshat Rati, talking about climate optimism, and we're going to find out more in a moment about that. Now, it may seem strange to talk about optimism, and I feel personally, as a tech entrepreneur myself, what we lack is the human will and coordination and political will to achieve that. According to Akshat, we already have those solutions, and there are many